Canucks lose again. And I think what we're seeing here against Montreal and Toronto is a big difference in depth. With Toronto, they have so much skill that their top two lines could be the top line on any team in the league. When you have Marner and Matthews on the top line, and Tavares and Nylander on your second line, and you have Jason Spezza on the fourth line. And Jason Spezza is not the player that he once was, but every once in a while he's going to have these moments like this where he, as John Garrett said, looks like the Jason Spezza of young, and it looked like he was against the Alex Edler of an old version of Alex Edler. But it's when these guys are on the third and fourth lines, they're facing the worst competition usually, and there's no pressure, so they're able to just pick these spots and make things happen. Whereas, and you see this in Montreal, where Tyler Toffoli, we're seeing, was one of the better players for the Canucks and made a big difference not being here. And he's playing on like the Canadiens' third line. And that's a big difference. Now, with the Canucks, as you can see here, now their problem is depth, where their top player is supposed to be JT Miller. He's struggling. He had a better game here. He's getting better each time. I think his thing is like conditioning or just like headspace and the COVID protocol. But when you've got your top player and he's really struggling, but you can't afford to put anybody else with those amount of minutes. And when Green has to play the hell out of Beagle is one of the best fourth line centers in the league, and he's probably not in the top 15, but he's a below average third line center. Sutter is playing hardly any minutes. God dad, I don't even think should be in this league, because the amount that he plays, he's still just causing huge giveaways. You know, you got guys like Pearson. Pearson looked pretty good too. Pearson's that tweener we always talk about, where he could play on the third line, second line, and here he looked great playing with Pettersson. I think him and Höglander have been good for Pettersson, and Pettersson looked really good this game. He looked engaged. He looked confident. He was making moves. We saw his great shot tonight, and he was making some good passes. Hughes looks overwhelmed, and that's a depth thing again. When you had Tanev to insulate him and take the pressure away from him and take the hardest parts of the job away. Now Ben is there, and they've looked good at times, but you know, Ben is not a top pairing guy. Ben is supposed to be a guy who plays on the third pairing and is solid and is cheap and is reliable and is tough. And we saw at the end of the game when Simmons hit Hughes pretty hard, Shorthouse on the Canuck call said he thought Hughes is a bit off balance. I mean, it was a bad hit to take at the end of a blowout, and a bad hit to make. And Jamie Benn went right up to him, challenged him to a fight. Simmons got in there and grabbed him and pinned Ben's arm down and was just nailing him. I thought this is going to get pretty ugly. And Ben eventually got in a position where he could throw some, and they both looked kind of tired, and Ben gave him the look like, are we done? And Simmons actually looked at him and just said, good job, bud. Like, there was this kind of workman-like respect of Simmons is brought to Toronto to provide this. Ben knows I got to stick up for my guy. That's why I'm on this line, and we're gonna play this team another 2 times. So it's time to make a difference. So I like Ben sticking up for him there. But I mean, Ben is just not a top line guy, and there's too many times where the puck gets dumped into the Canucks zone, and Ben kind of doesn't really know where to go, and that's not his fault. That's just not his game, and Hughes is probably a difficult guy to play with, and it's one more thing we took totally for granted with Tanev, is that he's able to work with a young guy who plays this kind of like roving style of defense and offense, and we're just really seeing Hughes struggle when he looks like he has the entire defensive load on his shoulders and that it's weighing on him. He looks slower than he ever has before. He looks sort of down on himself, and the team's struggling, and he's taken that personally because he's their number one defenseman, without a doubt. It wasn't too long ago we were clamoring just to get him to be the number one defenseman in the power play. That seems like ages ago when Edler was still the top guy. The guy can't hit the net with a slap shot, and he's got a slow, low wrister. I like Edler. Again, like with depth, Edler, top 4 defenseman, but definitely a second pairing guy. And it just seems like the whole team is struggling because they can't get any momentum going. Something I noticed in this game is you're watching Toronto and Vancouver go back and forth, and Vancouver is just throwing these Hail Mary passes, and you've got guys like Ben and Myers, and Myers can make a pretty good pass. The defense is probably better passers than the guys receiving the passes, because if Myers has a good pass, Hughes obviously can break out. Schmidt's got a pretty good pass. Who else? Edler got a pretty good pass. Chatfield, pretty decent. But it's either the system or just the personnel there, or just the passes they're making. It's these very low percentage, low quality passes. They're trying to go two lines, hit people in the blue line. They're trying to hit people in the neutral zone. Like, how many times did you see Sutter pick up a pass in the center, in the neutral zone, or like Goddard, and it just immediately gets broken up. And then something, like in this game in Toronto and against Montreal, it just seems like the Canucks go for a weak breakout. Montreal especially was doing this, and Toronto this time turns it the other way, and it's always numbers. It's like these odd man rushes like crazy, and we saw it in Toronto tonight. The first goal, Hughes is stuck way down low. No chance of getting back. It's Miller and Ben, and the Leafs just make it look easy. I don't know. Pettersson had a good game. I thought he was good on the back check plenty of times. He played some pretty good defense. Man, I don't even really want to go through all these goals, but let's do it. Pearson had a nice goal. Pettersson gains his zone, draws all the Leafs to him. Hoglander keeps it alive behind the net. Pearson just jams it in, and it's Pearson, it's Pettersson, it's Hoglander. That's the kind of goal you want to see, and that's a nice line. And these guys are showing, especially with Hoglander. Hoglander can elevate Pearson along with him, and I think really brings the best out of him. I think I really, at first I was thinking, don't break up Horvat and Hoglander, but don't break up Horvat and Pearson and Hoglander, because Pearson is pretty nice as the third piece who can do some of the dirty stuff and has a good shot, has some good finish. So I think he's working out pretty well with him. Spez's power play goal. Hughes takes a terrible battle. He takes a terrible penalty. Tavares turns him inside out. He just sort of reactionary, brings his stick around, takes a penalty. Spezza just loads up on a sharp angle slapper, and Myers is letting Hyman sit in front of the net. And Myers, if you're going to be slow, and if you're going to take bad penalties, and if you're not going to be that great at defense, why are you getting $6 million? It's because you're a big guy. And the dream is that, it's like Virtanen. They got all these tools. You see Big Myers. He's not Zdeno Chara. And there's a reason why he's, left Buffalo, why he left Winnipeg, and they didn't want to bring him back for that money. And Benning just really overbought on this guy. He has his moments. Of course he has his moments, because he's got enough skill to make this much money. He's just like a lot of the guys in the Canucks. He's just sort of inconsistent, and you can't trust him. And I feel bad for Travis Green, because what are your options? You got to play Myers. He's not sitting. You just put him with the third most minutes, and then feel him out. And when he looks like he's having a good game, you bump him up. Ben had a nice defensive play. The Leafs did a good dump, and Ben and Hughes were going back. I thought, for sure the Leafs are going to pick this forecheck up, this dump. And Ben played the body in a way that made it look like he was going for the puck, and then didn't. So it was just, he basically, to the effect of it, he was physical, and he interfered with the Leaf forward in a way that let Hughes grab it and safely exit. He interfered without getting an interference call and without it ever looking like an interference call. Oh, Myers. Speaking of Myers, he had this penalty where he was just turning around with his stick up high, and it's tough when you're a tall guy. It's really easy to get elbowing penalties. It's really easy to take more penalties because you're tall, and this was one of those where he just hooked the guy in the bloody face, and you can't be doing that. So, high sticked him. He didn't hook him. He did all kinds of things to that guy's face. Just a stupid penalty. Matthews' goal. Marner zooms in, goes behind the net. Demko's looking the other way, and he puts it out, and Matthews just streaks in. Hughes can do nothing, and he pops in a goal. And Demko looked so embarrassed. He just wasn't even moving, looking down. There's a shot where all the Canucks leave the ice. They go to the bench, embarrassed too. Demko's just standing there looking down like sad Keanu Reeves, and all the Leafs are behind him in the shot, celebrating. And I thought, man, if I was a defenseman, I would have stuck out there with Demko and talked to him. He looked like he needed some help out there, just mentally, emotionally. Demko had a rough game, and he... Were some of the goals bad? I mean, that one's not great. But the team is getting overwhelmed. He had some pretty good saves. See, look at this one. Just like the body language of it is like slow to get up, slow to react. He's not angry like Markstrom was. He just tends to get pissed at himself. And he probably thinks like, I want to go out here, put the team on my back, like I watched Markstrom do, like I know I can do, like I did in Vegas. And when they get scored on like that, over and over again, you can see that they feel like they're letting the team down. There were a few times where I thought the Leafs are going to run away with it, and the Canucks responded really, really well. But it just wasn't enough, and it's interesting. I was talking to my buddy Mike, who might join me for some videos and a podcast version of this. And he was telling me about this before I watched the game, because I watched a little later, so I can skip through all the intermissions and commercials. And he was saying he didn't think they got dominated, that they got sort of outworked. It was more of just a lot of bad giveaways. And I think it's like a systems thing, and it's a lack of skill. I just think the Canucks were outclassed. Toronto made Vancouver look like Vancouver made Ottawa look, where it was just an overwhelming waves of skill. And it kind of looked like this was the 2021 Leafs playing the older version of themselves that just was not disciplined, which is funny because under Babcock it was like they were less disciplined. But this Canucks team is just so discombobulated and doesn't have the depth to make up for it or to change things up, and there's no help coming. And that's the sad part, is that there's nobody else that they can really bring up. I mean, like Josh Bailey or something? And you're stuck with these contracts that are clogging you up from getting more help, from going and getting, like, Montreal's got a Corey Perry and Spezza and these kind of guys that you're paying nothing for, guys that you can bring in and out of your taxi squad if you want, that you can waive. Like the Leafs waived Spezza just to help them deal with some cap stuff, and he said, I'm not going anywhere, I'll retire if you grab me. Just nice veteran help. Can get a hat trick tonight. At one point I was thinking, I hope he gets his fourth goal. That would just be hilarious. And it's funny watching the Canucks play the Leafs, because there's not this built-up animosity over the years. I mean, there's we want to play good against them because we're going to be on Hockey Night in Canada. But that's what's nice about playing these back-to-back games against them. Well, they have a day in between, because it's the Leafs. Can't have the Leafs playing back-to-back games. The Canucks have played the most games in the shortest amount of time. They're getting screwed on the schedule here. And the Leafs have played probably the least other than the teams that were not playing because of COVID. I don't know. I don't even really want to go through. I wrote a million notes, and Edler took a stupid penalty. He just skates over and slashes the guy in the hands. He doesn't cause a turnover. It wasn't a dangerous spot. It was just a penalty. The Canucks kept getting a bit of momentum, and then Toronto would have a strong turnover, move up the ice, and they're playing so responsibly that they're getting these safe opportunities to counterattack, and they have so much skill that they can score. They looked really good in this game. And I'm thinking we're going to see a pretty good series between Toronto and Montreal by the time this is all done. Because the Canucks, as much as I like some of the pieces on the team, they just... Their bottom six is just so weak that they can't sustain any kind of pressure, and it's putting way too much pressure. They can't sustain any offensive pressure, and it's putting way too much pressure on the top guys. And the only way they can possibly win is if the goalie plays unbelievable. If Pettersson and Miller and Horvat play unbelievable, and Höglander and Hughes. And if you have any cracks, if those guys can't... What was that? It was like a big garbage can behind green that had a digital display on it. Did you see that? What the hell's that thing beside him? It's like an air conditioner, air purifier. Do you see that? It's to his that side. I flipped it. Maybe I won't get a copyright thing. I might have to just blur this whole video out, so who knows. Anyways, Benning has put this team in a really terrible spot. And it's, you just look at Nylander streaking around. And then you look at Virtanen, who just, that was another thing I was talking to Mike about. He's a big fan of Virtanen. I'm looking forward to doing a podcast with him because we can argue about Virtanen and Brock Besser. He's of the mind that Jake just hasn't been getting good enough opportunities, and that really, if you look at his time on ice, how many goals he's gotten, how many hits he's gotten, that he's shown a lot of potential. But I mean, really, for me, I watch him on the ice, and every shift, the majority of shifts, I think that was not a good shift. And the majority of plays he makes, I think that was not a good play. Yeah, he gets a lot of hits, sure, but I never see him hit somebody and think that was an impactful hit. Like Mott just hit that guy. He does it to get the hit. He's like Michael Del Zotto. Remember, Del Zotto just loved to hit people to rack up the hits, and he would talk. He would count the hits he got on the game, and he would talk to whoever counted them, the statisticians, and he would tell them, "You missed 2 of my hits there. I want those," because he knew that he was gonna live and die and get his contracts based on stats. He's a smart guy because he's a perimeter NHLer with flash. But it was just, yeah. So anyways, with Virtanen, I just feel like he does some good things, and there are some flashes. I loved him with Miller and Elias for a portion of time, but I just think he's not smart enough. He goes in and he just does that pee-wee play of going right to the puck instead of spreading out. He doesn't keep the forecheck alive. He doesn't win battles. He makes dumb passes, although everybody on this team is just making terrible passes. There's a serious team chemistry problem. There's a serious team leadership problem. There's a serious team depth problem. Defense, systems, breakouts. This is not a great team, and it's just had its heart ripped out when Markstrom and Tanev and Toffoli, who'd only been here since the deadline. What a dumb move. I mean, I guess it's a sunk cost fallacy of, well, we invested in Toffoli, so you can't. I heard somebody making that argument. Well, you can't think about what you gave to get him. Well, yeah, I think you can, because you would have had that. And what's the point of going all in on a guy like that and then letting him walk and not even trying to extend him during the season, or getting some, even if he doesn't agree to being extended to throughout the season, at least you've put in the groundwork, and he'll feel like, oh yeah, they do want me, and we talked and we had some ideas of contracts, and you can work on that. But I mean, I'll do another video on Benning, but when you look at how he's handled it, I just think he's not equipped to be a full general manager. He's made a few good trades, but I think even some of his best trades have been ones that kind of just came to him. I mean, the Schmid one, I think Vegas just needed to get rid of him fast because they know how to get out of cap trouble. And I mean, who wouldn't take that trade? I don't know, maybe he talked them down big time. He didn't go all in on Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which is good because he looked like a really dangerous pick. But the team, oh man, before they got Myers, what was the problem with this team? Too much money locked up on guys that are underperforming. So he pays big money, overpays to get Myers, a guy that's not desirable, a going to bring in $6 million? What the hell? And then you are a buyer at the deadline for Toffoli, even though you're a team that's been one of the worst performing teams since you've got them. And made some noise in the playoffs, yeah. But, even in the playoffs, those were exciting playoffs. Really exciting. But when the Canucks lost, they looked awful. And even some of the games they won, they looked awful. I mean, they were vastly outplayed by Vegas. They came out fighting and came out swinging. They had that heart and they had the skill to be opportunistic and make it count. But, I mean, we saw a lot of problems there, and they're a worse team now. Because Miller is playing worse. Pettersson's playing worse. You have Höglander. I just love Höglander. You just got to think about him and how great he is in that top six. And as you go on, maybe Podkolzin comes in. To hit on both of those guys in the same season would be pretty miraculous. Oh, that was a nasty hit, Chatfield. And who comes in and steps in? Miller. See? Miller. Good team guy. Oh, God. You can't hit people like that, Chatfield. And Miller realizes, oh, shit. I'm going to smack this guy before he goes and pounds on little Chatfield. I like Miller. He looks like a total asshole, but you need to have a few assholes on your team. Anyways, that was awful. With flashes of brilliance. So I'm gonna go listen to the postgame show and hear Travis Green probably give us a big Willie Desjardins speech of, well, I thought we played good tonight. I just didn't execute all the way, and we gotta tighten up a little bit and get back to our systems. But didn't feel like a 7-3 game. How do you think it felt? Thanks for watching.